Lindenhurst is a village of 27,000 on the south shore of Long Island, New York. These are the people who grew up there and their stories. Everyone I know is from Lindenhurst.
I set up this microphone, and I don't usually use this, but I had it. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Sound perfect.
Okay, great.
It might be the same one I'm using as well.
Oh, you have one of the Yetis?
Yeah, the Yeti.
Yeah.
Standard.
I think I bought it like 10 years ago, and I spent 5 years not using it. I think it wasn't until the pandemic started that I started using this microphone. It comes in handy.
So you're currently in Brooklyn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I live in Brooklyn. I live in Prospect Heights.
So let's bring it back to our collective hometown then.
Good old Lindenhurst.
Yeah. So what are your family roots in Lindenhurst?
My dad grew up in Lindenhurst. He was born in Ridgewood in Queens. And I think he stayed there until he was like 5 or 6. And then he moved out to Lindenhurst with his whole family. And I grew up in the same house that he grew up in. So my dad and his 3 other siblings, actually, when I was growing up, we all lived within like a 3-block radius of one another, south of Montauk, down near Venetian Shores.
I remember you were cousins with the Lagelfos, but I never knew
Mhm.
on whose side where.
Yeah, my dad's side, my dad, John and Amanda's mother, Deborah, is
Gotcha.
my dad's sister. But I was thinking, John, I was like, because I remember you, but I couldn't place where I knew you. Is that how I knew you from John?
That's got to be a big part of it. But I also
Okay.
remember like I worked at Blockbuster, and I remember you coming in with your mother all the time. Your mother
Really?
mentioning she was in a Bronx Tale every time she came in there, right? Like she's waving out of a window or something in the movie.
Are you serious? Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yes, that's true. That's so funny
Uh-huh.
though. Wait, did she tell you every time she came in?
More than once, for sure.
That's so funny. Yeah, she played an extra in A Bronx Tale, and yeah, it's the only movie she was ever in, and she was clearly still really excited about it.
Well, that was super special being an extra back then because you can just go on your TV and scan for yourself. You had to literally go to the video store and find yourself, or go to the movies when it comes out. It was
Yeah,
a little more labor intensive.
and it actually led to something for her because De Niro like called her in for something else, for
Oh.
another movie, for like one of the leads in the movie, and obviously she didn't get it, but I think now being an extra, it doesn't, like it's harder to make connections, I think, maybe because there are so many.
I've actually done a bunch of background work. I was talking to John about this the other day. I think like you see me in about 10% of the things I've been in.
Oh wow. Yeah, see,
Yeah.
it's so interesting. And what was your experience doing extra work?
So it was with central casting and
Yeah.
just a lot of long days, a lot of walking back and forth,
Yeah.
doing the same take over and over again
Hmm.
in all sorts of elements and
Yeah.
spaces.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Extras have it. It's a tough job.
It is, yeah. But it gave me an appreciation for, how those things are put together and like how much work really goes into it. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get to see it when you're on that side for sure.
Yeah. So, what did your parents do for a living?
My dad worked, well, I guess he worked for Schindler later, but my dad did elevator maintenance, and he mostly worked at a Stony Brook hospital. And my mom worked at Lindenhurst Middle School, and she worked in the guidance office. Yeah.
As far as like your first, so did you go to Bauer then?
No, I went to Harding Ave,
Harding
which
Ave.
is also where my dad went.
Yeah, we don't talk about that one that much because not a lot of people, I guess we interviewed grew up around that area.
Grew up
But,
south of Montauk, over near Venetian.
yeah, or at least like in the Harding zone.
Yeah, the east side, south of Montauk,
Yeah.
I guess it is, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's like right on the border of West Babylon, is that? Yeah,
Yeah.
West Babylon. Yeah, right on the border over there.
Gotcha.
It was nice growing up over there. We spent a lot of time over on the water because when you're over, I guess anytime you're south of Montauk, there's just like you're sort of like in between docks. Um, So you're just even if your house is not directly on the water, you're surrounded by it.
Yeah.
And so I remember being a kid spending a lot of time on the water, whether it was like swimming down at Venetian or smoking weed down on the docks down there, which
Of
we did a
course.
lot of. This is not like PG rated, this podcast,
No.
right?
Not at all.
Okay, great. I just want to be sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and riding our bikes up to Taco Bell because we couldn't cross Montauk Highway for a very long time. I think not until
Right.
we reached middle school. So we only
Yeah.
had Taco Bell on that side.
And you had siblings?
Yeah, I have a sister. She's 2 years younger, and she lives in California.
Okay. So, just as a kid, first days of school, what were your interests? What were you getting into as a kid?
Well, we did a lot, my sister and I. We played sports. I played soccer. We also did acting, like started really young, and there was actually a performing arts center in Lindenhurst that we spent a lot of time at called LIPAC, Long Island Performing Arts Center, which was in North Lindenhurst on Wellwood.
Yeah, like right across the
Um,
street from Rawl.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
yeah. Do you remember that? It's funny. Yeah.
I do. I was not involved in it, but I know several people that were.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. We spent like our entire childhoods there, like several, maybe like 11 years we went there. Um, and we just did a lot of hanging out, I guess, right? Like that's what a
Yeah.
lot of people on Long Island do. I remember being a kid playing a lot of manhunt and dressing up a lot. We really like to dress up, and we have so many pictures of us and our neighbors like dressing up in extreme costumes and makeup and then just walking around the neighborhood, which is so weird.
Yeah, you had to make your own fun back then.
Yeah, I think that's what was happening, right?
Pre-internet, yeah.
Yeah, pre-internet. Although I do remember when that's like a very formative memory. My cousin was not John, my another cousin of mine, Lindsay, uh my dad's twin brother. They were the first, and they lived right on Granada, like 2 blocks away from us. We lived on Lido. My
Hmm.
parents still live there. Um my cousin Lindsay, she they were the first ones to get internet. And I remember that first time when we're all sitting around the computer in the dining room and the dial-up started. We like
Yeah.
signed into AOL and that like and I just like that was one of those memories where it was just like, whoa, what's going on here? And then I think maybe I don't even know what we did once we got online because when the internet first came to be, like there wasn't that much to do. You could maybe
Right.
like
You
sign
go
into
to chat room or
Chat
something.
rooms,
Yeah.
a
yeah.
chat room, Nickelodeon chat room, ASL. Yeah, that's what we did a lot of, Nickelodeon chat rooms. I think that was the only one we were allowed to go into.
Yeah.
And what was the conversation? The conversation was like, where do you live? How old are you?
Yeah.
And
It
then it
was
just
probably
ended.
still full of creeps, I'm sure.
And
Yeah.
yeah, full of a lot of pedophiles, probably.
Most likely, yeah. Okay, so as you said, you started taking acting classes really young. What were some of like your first steps into acting, like as far as like getting on stage and performing?
Um, well, yeah, I started taking it really young, and uh as you know, John, my mom was an
Yes.
actress.
So I've heard.
And yeah, and she actually didn't start doing it until she was much older, like after she had us, and she had us pretty young. So maybe like early 30s she started. And she just found that it really helped her to with confidence and just to sort of like I think express emotions and come out of her shell. Because she didn't really get a lot of that growing up. And so that was why she initially enrolled us in acting classes, because she wanted that experience for us also. And we just really enjoyed it. Never like, well, that's not true actually. I was going to say I never really considered it as a career because we actually at a very young age, we had one of our neighbors was an agent at one of like the biggest kids agencies called Gilla Ruse, and they're no longer in existence, but um she knew that we were acting and she decided to represent us. So my sister and I did some print work and commercial work when we were younger. Like we would be like the kids on the cover of like a dime bank pamphlet, stuff like that. And so we started taking acting classes. And I remember the very first acting class I took, actually, it was so terrifying because it was with this older kid. He was maybe 16. And we're playing the mirror game. And if you know anything about the mirror game, you just like have to
Yeah.
follow what they're doing. But I was like 4 or 5. And he's like making all of these weird faces at me. He's like, and I remember I just started crying.
Oh
And
no.
I ran away. I was like, I want to leave here. Um, but I don't know, something brought me back, I guess. And um, I think our first introduction really was probably through LIPAC when I was like 6 maybe. And we continued doing that, and we were auditioning, going into the city for auditions, and we never made, I mean, we made like a little bit of money from doing that, and my mom put it in a college savings account. But it was never like a super lucrative thing, us coming into the city and going on go-sees is what they're called.
Mhm.
I actually don't know if they're still called that because I don't know. I don't do that type of work. Um, which is not a judgment against it at all. I just don't get hired for that stuff. Um, but yeah, and then I got into high school, I did Lindenhurst offered this really cool program where you could go to what is now called LISA, and it's like Long Island School of the Arts, and
Yeah, the
there's
BOCES
yeah,
program.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I went and I did that, I think starting my sophomore year. No, starting my junior year of high school, which was great because I didn't have to take any more math classes or like science classes, which the only reason why I passed is because I had some good friends who usually would share the answers with me on tests. I had never really excelled in those subjects. Um, and then once I went over to Lisa, that was when there was like a real possibility of like, okay, like here are all of the colleges that you can audition for. And I was like, oh, I could go to college for this. And so it was at that point in time that I decided to go to college and, got my auditions ready and applied to schools for acting and wound up going to Syracuse University for acting.
When you were at the performing arts school, what were you in productions? Like, were you in plays and musicals? Or
I don't remember doing it at the high school at
yeah,
BOCES. I don't remember that, which is kind of an odd
yeah,
thing about it. I don't think that I think when we were in high school, I did the high school plays and musicals, but we didn't have that at BOCES, which is so strange. We had these sort of like labs where once a month on Wednesdays, we would all gather in the auditorium or at the stage, and we would perform for one another. And you can invite people, you can invite your parents, you can invite whoever.
yeah.
Um, but I don't remember there being like actual recitals. Maybe I'm wrong though. I don't know.
So you would come
But
back. You would come back to Lindenhurst High School and do the plays there.
yeah, that's where we had the full length drama productions. Yeah, which was, oh, I'm getting deja vu right now. Um yeah, oh, it's really strong. Um Drama was so fun. The teachers were, or the directors were, Mr. Albano
Yeah,
and Mr. Smith. Do you remember? Well,
yeah.
what year did you graduate? John, you were a year ahead of me.
I think I'm 2 or 3. I graduated 2001, so I'm 2 or 3 years ahead of you.
Yeah, okay, so you're three
Yeah.
years ahead.
Yeah, I'm 99.
And you were 99. Did you have Albano?
Yeah, well, I did percussion in the plays, so
Oh,
And
nice.
I remember him. Yeah, doing dialogue
Okay.
and all that. Yeah,
we actually interviewed Mr. Smith last week.
yeah,
You did? Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Oh, that's so fun. I mean, he's such a great teacher to have around, Mr. Smith. He's still teaching, right? Or is he
yes.
Yeah.
retired?
No, he's still
Um,
teaching.
he's just an awesome, I mean, I'm sure there's thousands of people who he's like really touched and impacted, and he's just one of those people who is such like a bright light and great energy about him. It's such a joy to be around. And um someone like that is such a great person to have in a high school setting.
So what productions were you in the high school?
Um Spoon River Anthology. I remember that one, which is a terrible play that a lot of high schools do, but if you ever get a chance to see one at a high school, don't.
Okay.
If they're still producing them these days, because you like claw your eyes out. Spoon River Anthology, and then there was this play. John, were you ever in any of the plays?
No.
No, okay, okay. Um, Bye Bye Birdie, which was a lot of fun. I remember that one. And then there was this other sort of like, I remember we were all dressed in like 80s costumes with big hair, and I can't remember what it was called, but I do remember that I had a scene where I think my
Is that a
brother,
drama or a musical?
a drama, like an
I
intense,
remember that because I think Melinda Lynn was in that, and I think I went to see that year after I was in
possibly.
high school.
Yeah, yeah, was and it's like a very yeah, it was like a pretty serious drama. They were like dealing with like drugs and like
Uh-huh.
suicide and
Hmm.
yeah, it was like some intense subject matter. Um, that one I remember. That one I think I liked the most. It's like pretty serious and it was one of those productions also where in drama club you and anytime you're doing a play, anytime when you're an actor and you're doing something, typically it happens with a play. You grow really close with the cast and with the people you're doing it for. And it's for this just sort of brief moment in time. And everyone gets to know one another really intimately. And you form these like really close bonds. And it usually goes away very
Mhm.
shortly thereafter. But I remember with that play, that happening where we all became really, really close. And um and then it ends and then it's over, but I do remember the experience of it and overall it being really fun, and I think that was also my senior year, so it was sort of a send off into the
Mhm.
world, closing out these formative years of your life, kind of your coming of age story,
Yeah.
and then going off into the world. And I went away to college too, so it was a really eye-opening experience going to a different place that especially socioeconomically was very different from a lot of the people that I had grown up with. And yeah, I have very fond memories of that time. And then of course we closed it all out with like a really big party, which I
Yeah.
think I think happened at my parents' house. Not that there was anything illegal happening.
No, but
Of
the
course not.
statute of limitations might be up on that. So
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
I
Don't
do
ask, don't
recall
tell.
like
Yeah.
se- several parties at your house and your mother being very, very nice and friendly to all parties that were there.
You were at several parties at my house?
Yes.
That's amazing. Oh, I'm so
Mhm.
glad to hear that. Um, that's great. Yeah. Well, my mom's she had this theory that like, look, kids are gonna party, like let's give them a safe environment to do it in. That was
Yeah.
kind of her mindset.
Yes.
Um, which was great. And her ability to probably like watch over things and make sure things didn't get too out of control, as opposed to going to the parents' house to party, who, the parents who weren't home,
Right.
were like the kids, there was no oversight or guidance. But that's fun. What parties did you come to? Was it birthday parties or just summer parties?
I just remembered being there in the summer, drinking in your backyard, and your sister, who's younger than you, being very, very drunk. Like
Yeah, well,
everybody was kind of buzzed or whatever, but
But she
like,
was 21, everyone. She was 21 years
yeah,
old.
yes, she
she
was
was
21 at the
21
time.
years old and a
She was
freshman in
a
high school.
freshman.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Freshman in high school, 21 years old.
Yep.
Um, that's really
Late
funny.
bloomer.
Yeah, right. Well, that continued for many years where Jess would be the youngest and probably the drunkest. But
You had to keep up with everyone else.
she had to keep up with everyone else, right? I'm happy to report that she has since gotten her shit together. She's no longer the drunkest at the party.
It's
Very
good
good
to
to hear.
hear. But so you mentioned, okay, going away to college and kind of like a culture shock. I didn't go, I went to Hofstra, but that was definitely my first experience, like being around really affluent people when
Yeah.
my age. Like, you
Yeah.
know, there would be BMWs with Connecticut license plates in the parking
Yep.
lot. And I was like, oh, this is different. This is not what I'm
Totally.
used to.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
Syracuse is like a huge school, sports wise and stuff too. You have a Carrier Dome there, I believe, right?
Yeah, yes, we
Yeah.
do. It's a huge school. The school has a lot of money because it's a private university. And
Mhm.
now I think it costs like upwards of 50K a year, which is insane.
mm,
It
Whoa.
was 40,000 a year when I went. And I don't think I'd ever, so I always describe Syracuse as there are some programs like if you know you're going for communications, if you're going for architecture, if you're going for drama, you have to audition. So there are some programs that are a bit more diverse, but the general student body I always described as a bunch of very rich kids who couldn't get into the Ivy Leagues.
mm,
And it was that same experience that you just said. Like I remember initially arriving and just the cars that you would see driving around.
yeah.
It was one of those moments of, oh, okay. Um, and that, there was that part of it, and that part, that's not all negative, right? There's a lot of there were just a lot of like Ugg boots and North Face and not a lot of character. There were, not a lot of people had their own sense of style. It's sort of like, okay, I'm gonna wear like what I'm supposed to wear.
I
And
remember seeing a lot of Abercrombie at Hofstra in the year
yeah,
99. Yeah.
ton of Abercrombie.
Everything
With
had my initials on it. It was so weird.
that's funny. That's actually pretty cool. Did you ever wear the brand yourself?
I had a hat. Yeah.
You had a hat. Nice.
That's as far as I went.
Yeah, it was monogrammed for you.
Yeah. You know,
Um, but Syracuse also there was that side of it. And that side has its pros because, a lot of those people that you're in the program with, like they have connections. It's great to network with them. Um, Drama was way more diverse in general, socioeconomically in a lot of different ways.
mm,
Um, but then there's the other side of Syracuse that they have a huge international student program there. They have really large gay communities, especially in the drama department. Obviously, it's always tends to be always is the case.
mm.
Um, and it's a liberal arts school. So I remember my sophomore year, I created a learning community. Like you can have learning communities, and I found out that the learning communities you would get like $10,000 and you could do whatever you wanted with that money. So I decided to create a drama learning community, and that way I got to live in the same like section of a dorm with all my friends and be their RA.
Gotcha.
So, which was a lot of fun because obviously there wasn't much oversight with me as the RA, but it was and I always tell people this was one of the most educational, eye-opening experiences for me being an RA because all of the other RAs, like it was me. And then we had a gay Republican from Oklahoma. There was a like born again Christian guy who like literally always walked around with the Bible. There was one woman from Pakistan, another guy from India, another woman from I think she was from Texas and she was black. And there was just this incredible, and this other dude from Africa too. This like incredibly diverse group of people, all of the RAs, right? And there was like 10 of us. And each person wildly different from the next. And every single week we would have to get together and talk about like we had to talk about affirmative action, or we had to talk about like every single week was a new topic, something that was maybe currently going on in the world, and we had to hear the point of view from every single person. And it was awesome. I mean, I don't think I learned so much in that 1 year of being an RA from these weekly meetings with this incredibly diverse group of people. And my experience at Syracuse was amazing for so many reasons. And that is one of the largest ones. And that had nothing to do with drama. It was just about the different people that I got to meet going there.
And you had to find some common ground, all of you, and agree on
And
something.
yeah, yeah. And it's before, you're also having these conversations with one another in person. Like, I feel like now there's any type of dialogue has lost so much nuance, and there's so much black and
Yeah.
white. And it enrages me when I see a lot of what I see on social media. And it's like, where has all the nuance gone? Like, we can't. And there's so much blame, and there's so much like, you're in this camp or you're in this camp. And I've also, like, I don't want to just sit here and be like, I see all this and I'm like appalled by it. I've also engaged in it
Sure.
and like had to take a step back and be like, what's going on? What are you doing? Do you want to be part of this?
It's hard to resist sometimes, right?
Because it gets so hard to
Yeah.
resist because we're all sitting behind our phones and behind our
Yeah.
computers.
It's so
And
easy.
so easy, so different than like having a conversation with a person like this and having to have grace and wanting to hear them and wanting to be heard yourself. It's so yeah, Syracuse was a great experience, and a lot of I have a lot of people that I went to Syracuse with, I'm still friends with. And my core group of people that are like my family but friends,
Mhm.
or friends but family, are people that I grew up that I knew from Lindenhurst, but they actually didn't go to Lindenhurst. They went to North Babylon, my core group of friends,
Okay.
but I would not have known them unless I went to Lindenhurst or grew up in Lindenhurst.
Gotcha. And so did you feel like college did really prepare you for your career now? Or like, was it something you could have gone out on your own at 18 and just like, went out and auditioned and just kind of figured it out yourself?
Oh my God, I've never thought about that before.
Yeah.
And the answer is probably like, no, I could have gone without it and saved a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, were there connections that were made that have helped me and continue to help me to this day? Yes. Could I have made connections like that outside of college? Probably, yeah. Probably just like, if you anything can be done. If you want to go out and start making connections in a certain field, you can find a way to do it. You don't need to go to college
Yeah.
to do it. Yes, I do think that there are some schools that set you up, but I know people who went to Yale School of Drama and they're still trying to make a career and still trying to get work. And, it's not like if you go to one of the top universities, you have your career handed to you.
Yeah.
My husband went to Princeton, and that's maybe a little bit of a different story. Like, he just has a network of connections that makes it just really easy for him. He's in public policy and international policy, and the connections that he made at school have totally helped his career. He went there for grad school, and it would have been very challenging for him to make those connections without. But I think as an artist,
It's different. Yeah.
it's different. Yeah. And the question is, like, I've had people ask me before, younger people, like, should I spend this amount of money? And it's like, I mean, I was really lucky. My dad, who again did elevator maintenance, like, I come from a very blue collar background. My dad worked himself to the ground and paid for my sister and I to go to a private school with very few student loans, which is incredible. And we'll forever be grateful to him for that. But if you are going to be leaving school, you're going for an art and you're going to be leaving school with a bunch of loans, I would consider other options.
So coming out of college, did you just kind of hit the ground running with acting and just jump right into it? Or were
No,
you exploring other things?
I wish it had happened like that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, exploring other things. like partying is what I did a lot of
Okay.
after college. Um, and I was still like, trying to act, but I think in a lot of ways I was maybe finding myself. Let's put it in a nicer way.
Okay.
For many years after college, like working in restaurants and auditioning and like trying to get an agent and doing all of the things, doing some free small shows here and there, trying to put up your own work, doing all the things that trying to just like get a foot in somewhere. And none of that was working at all. I just couldn't get an agent. And that's really like half of the game is getting, and everyone has a different path in a different way. So some people will be like, well, I got my first big gig without an agent. And that happens all the time, right? But it's really hard to get good auditions when you don't have an agent.
Was it kind of that catch-22 where it's like they want to see a resume, but how do you get a resume if you don't have an
Yeah,
agent?
totally.
That kind of back and forth. Yeah.
Totally. That's exactly it. And then there's this sort of like whole pay to play thing where you go and you take classes and you pay to meet casting directors and you pay to meet agents. And actually a lot of those are great. And a lot of those are a great way to get introduced if you have the resources and you have the money to be able to do that, which is another component of this that a lot of people don't. And it just, makes it harder to break into the industry. Um, but yeah, when I was sort of at the end of, I was like, okay, nothing I'm doing is really working. I was applying to grad schools and I had applied to Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf is, in my opinion, the best regional theater in North America. And
Chicago, Gary Sinise, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, John Malkovich.
Terry Kinney, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they all founded it. And Amy Morton, although is she Laurie Metcalf is a founding member.
Yes.
Is Amy a founding member or did she come on later? That I don't know, but she's been part of the company for a really long time. And Amy is like one of my idols. She's the whole reason why I learned about Steppenwolf because she did a play called August Osage County, which will probably forever be the best play that I've ever seen in my life. I can't imagine anything's going to beat it. It was a 3-hour epic drama. They wound up making a movie of it many years later that Meryl Streep was in, and the movie was good, but it didn't compare to the play. And Amy Morton starred in that play, and I won a bunch of Tonys that year, and it was fantastic. And when I saw that it was produced by Steppenwolf, I was like, Steppenwolf, what's this? And I looked it up, and I saw that it was a theater in Chicago. And then I saw that they had this summer intensive training program, and I was like, well, let me go try and do that. And I auditioned for it, and I got in, and I didn't realize at the time, but Amy wound up being one of my teachers, which
Wow.
I found out on the very first day that we arrived. They were like, Amy Morton's going to be your scene study teacher. And I think, oh, it was so exciting to like know that someone that you idolize and look up to and whose work you want to emulate in a lot of ways, their style, was going to be your teacher is awesome. And now I get to see her at work sometimes too, because she's on Chicago PD, which is really exciting.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Very
that's
cool.
just like full circle, really awesome. But yeah, so I actually lived in Chicago for 4 years and I was doing theater there, which is what most of my professional work has been, theater. I was doing theater in Chicago and then I came back to New York and I got my first agent in Chicago, which is why I decided to stay for that amount of time. And then I came back to New York and I wound up getting an agent in New York. And yeah, that's kind of the story.
While you were in Chicago, did you ever dip your toes into like Second City or any of that type of stuff, or take any of those
No,
classes?
I really should have. I did take one improv class was part of the training at Steppenwolf.
Okay.
Um, and I really should have, but I never did.
Did you go to see that stuff at least?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There are these two great improv artists called TJ and Dave. And
I'm familiar.
oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. I think it was like every Wednesday they would have a show
Yeah. Yeah.
in Chicago, which is wild that they did that every single Wednesday. And I went to several of those and they're unbelievable. They're really great. And yeah, I had gone to a couple things. They were my favorite. Um, but yeah, that's really what Chicago's known for in terms of
Yeah.
performance. They're known for their improv scene.
It's a big training ground for a lot of people who go on to SNL and
Yeah.
Groundlings and things like that. Yeah.
Right, right. Like did Amy Poehler, is she
Yeah. She,
maybe? I don't know.
yeah. So
It
I don't know if
UCB got their
she
start in Chicago and
right.
then they
They're
came
like
to
the
New York and
Annoyance
started.
Theater or
Yeah.
Improv Olympic or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
But then they came to New York and basically brought that to New York because there was really nothing
Yes.
at the
Right.
time. Yeah.
And there's a lot of there's this thing in Chicago called storefront theaters and really small theaters that house like 100 people.
Hmm.
And like the Chicago Tribune will go and review something at Steppenwolf. And a lot of Steppenwolf, not a lot, but there's maybe like a show every 2 seasons, something from Steppenwolf will transfer to Broadway. And so the Tribune will go and review all of the storefront shows. And the storefront shows, you're not getting paid anything to do them, but there are incredible actors, playwrights who do these shows in Chicago, who get a start in Chicago, and then they wind up leaving and going somewhere else to do. Like one person who's coming to mind is Andrew Hinderacker. I hope I'm saying his last name correctly. He was a member of the Gift Theater and a great playwright. And someone like read his play in like in Hollywood, maybe it was a showrunner or something. And then he went on to go write for Penny Dreadful, and then he just did the revamp of Let the Right One In, which I think sadly got canceled because that was really good. Um, but there are just a lot of really talented people who come in and out of Chicago and continue to work there, like Terrell Alvin McCraney, who was also one of my teachers at Steppenwolf. He did Moonlight. He wrote the movie Moonlight, which won the Oscar. What was that, like 4 or 5 years ago now? He's a member at Steppenwolf Theater Company and still comes back to do work there. So it's an incredible place if you're a young artist. Unfortunately, I mean, unless you're working on one of the big TV shows there or you're one of the members of Steppenwolf Theater Company, you're just not making that much money as an actor. It's harder to make a career there where you're actually, making money
Sure.
as opposed to New York or LA. The expectation in New York or LA is like, well, I'm trying to do this to make money.
Right. There's an industry in those cities.
Yeah, right, right.
Hmm.
As opposed to just being more of a hobby, I guess.
Right. If you just want to perform and just, live for cheap, you go to Chicago.
Yeah, it's actually sad that a lot of things a lot of things will start in Chicago and then they'll leave and they won't take the actors with them or they won't take the director. And it's actually really sad because there is such an incredible talent base there. And when I was living there for the 4 years, there was this sort of like, Chicagoans who are in the theater art scene are they roll their eyes when actors, because so many actors from New York or LA get hired for the TV shows that shoot there. Which is unfortunately one of the things that happened. And I didn't book Chicago PD until I came back to New York. So it's like,
That that's what I was going to ask. So you said you got an agent in Chicago and New York. What's the big difference between the kind of work that those agents would get you in Chicago or New York?
well, what's interesting is that I actually got more pilot auditions ever in my life in Chicago. Every single year, I would have so many pilot auditions because the market there is so small that
So big fish, small pond kind of deal.
exactly right.
Yeah.
But other than that, um there's just not a lot like something like Blue Bloods that shoots in New York is not going to cast out of Chicago. They'll cast out of LA if they need to, but they're not going to cast out of Chicago.
Right.
So all of the shows that shoot in New York, all of the shows that shoot in LA, they're not casting out of Chicago. So if you're in Chicago, you're not going out for any of those. So in terms of TV during pilot season, it's great. And then otherwise, you're like every once in a while auditioning for Chicago PD, Chicago Med, or Chicago Fire, the other show that like I think Empire was there for a period of time. Um, there's just not a lot of TV. It's mostly theater that you're going to be doing there. You're not going to be auditioning for TV and film. And coming to New York, back to New York, that shifted because all of a sudden I was like pretty much only auditioning for TV and film and not auditioning for uh as much theater as I was.
Did you get far in any like pilot auditions with anything or
No, not yet.
okay.
I have not ever booked a pilot yet.
And then my next question would be what got you your SAG card?
Um, I think Law and Order.
Okay. Special
Yeah,
Victims Unit?
yeah. When I did
Okay.
SVU, I was
I rewatched that episode last week. It
oh
was a fun one.
nice. Yeah, it was I was like the Christine Blasey Ford of the episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a background actor somewhere in SVU. I'm a
Are you?
journalist. I'm a journalist in the courtroom snapping pictures.
Oh, amazing. What season did you do?
It was 2 years ago, and I was looking for the episode and I couldn't find it, so it might not have even aired yet. I think it
Oh,
was like
nice.
just pre-strike, so maybe,
Yeah. Oh, that's not that long ago.
yeah.
Cool.
So it might still.
How did it
Yeah.
sorry, how did it feel to be an actual special victim in the episode?
Well, actually, I'll tell you a quick little story about
You
it.
got to do a scene with Mariska Hargitay, like literally
Yeah,
face to face with her.
and she was amazing. And my director was Monica Raymond, and thank God she was my director because I had a panic attack on set. And I did all of the things that like you are not, because that was my first TV job. And I did all of the things that I wasn't supposed to do. Like we're in the middle of shooting and they may have even have been rolling. And I was like, I need to use the bathroom because I got so nervous and I couldn't, this was the first time this had ever happened to me. I could not control my nerves. And if you watch it again, you'll see that like my neck, I'm starting to like break out in hives in it. And Monica Raymond, thank God. And Mariska was also so kind. I think everyone could tell that I was a little, maybe like freaked out a little bit. And Monica Raymond pulled me aside. She's like, okay, let's just do some breathing. And she was like, I was like, I'm sorry. This is my first TV job. I'm really nervous. And she was like, it's okay. This is my first time directing. I'm really nervous too. And she was so kind and so nice. So we went back into the room and I still like it's hard for me to watch because I still am just like, oh God, it was such a bad experience and a good experience because I felt like the ultimate failure after shooting that. I felt like it was the worst performance of my life. I felt like it was just like terrible. And so I think it's Chris Rock who has this thing where the first show he did at the Apollo, they booed him out. Like I felt like I booed myself out, which is great because when you're at the bottom, like you can only go up.
It's a rite of passage. Yeah.
It does not come across on screen at all, but I can't
Thanks. I
imagine how
appreciate that.
nerve-wracking it must be to walk into that police station. You know, if you've ever
Yeah.
watched that show at all, you know.
Well, and I hadn't before I had it. It was just more the feeling of like it's like a big,
Yeah.
I'm doing a TV show for the first time and the sort of like pressure that I put on myself for that. And then the feeling afterwards of like, I'm never gonna work again. But then but then I definitely didn't think I was ever gonna work in the Dick Wolf world again. But then when I booked FBI, which was maybe like a year later, maybe a little bit less than that. No, yeah, a year later. They hired me because the director of that episode, Alex Chappell, remembered me. He was on set that day that I did SVU and he remembered me for it. And he actually like rewrote the thing and like added a lot more, which wound up being cut in the end because he remembered my performance from that episode. And I guess he thought it was okay and wanted to make my part bigger in FBI. So it wound up not being nearly as bad as it was in my head.
Do all those shows shoot in that same spot down at Chelsea Piers?
No, SVU does. I don't know where Law and Order is, or because now there's Law and Order and then Law and Order Organized Crime.
Right, yeah.
I don't know about those two, but FBI shoots in Greenpoint.
Okay.
Is it Steiner? No, I forget what it's called. Maybe it is Steiner, actually. There's a
It's like right on the river
yeah.
there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
shot for New Amsterdam in that same complex.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Yeah, I guess that brings us to your current job, which is Chicago PD.
Yeah. Which has been great. I've been recurring on it since the very end of season 9. And we just started shooting again. So I was there a couple weeks ago to shoot the first episode. And I don't really know what's gonna happen next in terms of like my character and how often I will be coming back. But you will see me again throughout this season.
And how did the downtime during the strike affect you? Obviously, no work during that time.
Yeah, it sucked.
Certain degree of uncertainty.
At first it was great because we're like all going to picket lines and seeing friends we haven't seen in a really long time. And it was like, oh, this is a great reunion. But then after the first like 3 weeks,
Like anything, it's cool to not have a job for a week and then you don't have a job and you have nothing to do every day.
Yeah, it was like quarantine when it was supposed to be 2 weeks. It's like, all right, I'll take 2 weeks off from everything. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Then it turned into 2 years.
Right. And you're like, oh God. And it was kind of it was a little bit different because at least with quarantine, like, yeah, it got old, but at least the whole world was doing it.
Right.
With the strike, it wasn't like that. So the whole world is like back to work and you're like, oh God, here we are. It was hard. It sucked. I'm glad it's over. I know a lot of people were not happy with like the AI provisions, but
that's what I was going to ask. Do you feel like those issues were met or resolved?
I think they're fine enough. But I'm also like a little bit more moderate on what I believe SAG as a union could achieve with these negotiations. I do think that Congress has to step in. Like all of our rights are going to be on the line.
It's a bigger issue than just
it's a
SAG.
bigger issue.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like SAG needed to be the pioneers with the issue. I think a lot of people who are SAG members felt like they should have been, though, especially because actors, their likeness is going to be taken probably a lot more than other people's because we're already in front of a camera. So I don't know. I feel like there's more is going to need to be done, and AI is moving so quickly, and it's a scary thing, but I think there's just at some point Congress is going to have to regulate AI in the same way that a lot of countries in Europe are doing, or the European Union's doing.
Yeah, my last question, acting wise, I was going to ask you was, what was it like to modify your acting from stage to screen? Because I know there's a lot of different nuance to that.
Yeah, I actually left out like a really important component of my work translating to screen because I had been auditioning for TV and film and it just wasn't like going very well. And I started taking, like, I have a coach, I have an acting coach that I've been working with for years. And this is another important thing. If you are considering acting, you have to always be doing it. And a lot of us actors are unemployed a lot of the time. And so in those in-betweens where you're not on set, where you're not doing a play, you have to still be acting. And it's important to like be part of a class because it's just a muscle and it needs to be worked out. And I started taking class with Bob Krakauer crew, which is Eric Reese is my coach who works under Bob Krakauer. And he helped me figure that out. And he just helped me to become a better actor. I think when you learn how to be an actor for theater, there are a lot of like bad things you learn. And really what we value about actors, or what I do, everyone has a different taste, but I like to see people who I just like to see truth. And that's always my goal, is to bring truth to whatever I'm doing. And the camera picks up on when you're being inauthentic more than anything. Like if you're doing that on stage, you
Sure.
could pretend to cry and people might not realize that you're
And also on
pretending.
stage, everything has to be very exaggerated. You're kind of playing to the people in the back of the room as well.
Yeah. So it's a subtle shift, but it's also energetically something that you feel when you're playing to a camera and to a person who's 3 feet away from you. It's a very different, it's like having a conversation with you guys here, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm playing to a theater, energetically, I feel that that's larger. I feel that things have to travel more, whether it's, intention or voice or um just energy.
Yeah.
Um I've I've I love theater, but the like medium of film and TV is starting to grow on me more.
My last television question is: have you met Dick Wolf?
I have not,
Okay.
but
Okay.
when I do, or if I do, I'll report back and let you know.
Thank you.
Send pictures.
I
Yeah.
do know that he's around every once in a while, but I haven't yet to meet him.
I'm wondering if he knows how hilarious his name is.
I do want to get one of those hats that says,
Executive producer Dick Wolf. Yes.
yes, yeah, yeah, those hats are great.
He had to grow up with that name, so I'm sure he knows.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he knows, right?
All right. So I guess that brings us to our closing question. Back to our hometown. If you could describe Lindenhurst to somebody who's never been there, what would you tell them?
I would say, well, now it's changing in a good way.
Yeah.
Well, Wellwood, I love what's happening there. Um, but I would say that it's a town where you can be a kid. That was for me what Lindenhurst was, like enjoying all of the like beautiful parts of being a kid. A lot of play, a lot of fun. And yeah, I think that's that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone I know, everything I see, everywhere I've been, it means so much. You meant so much to me. What comes next? I'll keep you guessing.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. So you're still in Lindenhurst?
Absolutely. Never
Nice.
leaving. Yeah.
A lifer.
New York Avenue, a bust.
Okay. So let's bring it back to the beginning then. How did the LaFatas end up in Lindenhurst?
Yeah, it's a long story. I moved originally from Copiague when I was like 5 years old, went like next door to my house, lived there, and used to jam in the basement all the time. Moved next door with my mother and my sister, and then bought this house next door to that.
Okay.
So I moved more than 40 feet in my whole life. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
So what were your folks doing for a living?
My dad in construction. We owned our own construction business, and I used to work for him. Commercial construction, residential. I was a spackler, sheetrocker, window guy, you name it, siding, roofing. And that's why you go into a band, because you don't want to fucking do that shit.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's funny nowadays, I guess our generation, I'm a little bit younger than you, but like, the thing was got to go to college. But nowadays it's like there's more of a push to the trades again.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I say that I'm telling my daughter that the same thing. I'm telling them like now it's opposite. Like when
Yeah.
I was doing it, it was like, when I started construction, it was a lot of union. I mean, that's cool. Like Kerry's in the union, my band, everybody's in the union, but I wasn't in the union. So that's why it was like, oh, if you want to be in the union, you have to you have to be an apprentice. I'm like, fuck that. And I had to read plans and all that shit.
Right.
So yeah. So, and then I worked independent. It's a pain in the neck, but worked out good. So now I'm a white collar guy.
Gotcha.
So,
Cool. So yeah, as a kid, what were you getting into as far as like activities?
well, playing drums every weekend with these clowns. Now I'm just kidding. I love playing drums. I'm just like, I love gardening. Gardening's my favorite thing in the world. You know, go to the gym and hang out and just, I don't know, everything. I'm into everything.
Okay.
And so,
But like as a kid, doing sports or anything, any extracurriculars like that?
no, as a matter of fact, like some of my best friends that they were really into sports. That's how I met like my best friend, actually LD and my friend Brian. Like we stayed friends forever, like since sixth grade. And it's crazy because they were always into sports and everything else. And they're like, yo, join the football team. So I went. I lasted like one day in the football team, and they told me to do push-ups without water, and I was dying. I'm like, you know what, fuck this shit. So I, but I always
Yeah.
played music from the very beginning, and I knew like drums is my thing, and that's it. Like I need to run around.
Yeah.
So
So were
yeah,
you playing in school at first, or was it just
I
like
did. I was in the band, and in sixth grade, um, it was horrible. It was like I think I had the bass drum, and then I put the mallet through the skin, and the guy got mad.
nice?
He was like, "You're out of here! You're out of here!" So I was like, you know what? so I just started learning on my own. Actually, my dad got me into like a lot of my drumming. So he
Okay.
used to like, yeah, I used to really like LL Cool J, my radio. So like it was crazy. That's what I originally like used to like hip hop and old school shit. And he bought me the radio, and I'm like, what? And then he bought me a drum set, and he's like, play to that and all your other stuff that you play to. And I started learning like beats and everything all on my own. And that's how I basically start playing.
So I'm a drummer as well, and I sometimes teach kids, and that's like the biggest thing for me is just listening, really, and playing along. Reading and all the academic stuff can come later, especially like if you want to be in the school band, etc. But playing along to music is paramount for me.
Yeah, and lessons have it has its place. Like I learned how to do rolls and
Yeah,
paradiddles and all that shit. But if you really want to learn how to play your own style, you really like, and everybody be like, oh, listen to Buddy Rich and listen to this and listen. The only real drummer I actually really was influenced by was Stuart Copeland. Like that was
okay,
my favorite drummer. So like he because it was just like offbeat, and I loved how like it
yeah,
wasn't always on perfect time, but he had this, and he had that ska style, but then, all over the place, punk rock. So it was like, that was one of my favorite drummers. But like, it is true. Like, if you want your own style, you play like,
yeah,
you take in influences and stuff. And actually, like Rest in Pieces and all that stuff came in too. But it's like, you take in all the influence and you learn on your own. I think that's the best. That's all
yeah.
there is to it.
So cool. So at one point, did you start discovering like local music and the local scene?
Well, Lindenhurst, as you know, that's why we're here right now, right? It's always been a breeding ground for like, just all our music. It was kind of cool because like, everybody used to travel from Long Island to go to CBGBs and see all the hard New York hardcore bands. And like, you always wanted to be like those bands. You're like, wow, this is incredible. It's a whole different scene. But then we started developing our own flavor, and we all became friends. And like, I think you had Audie Philly on your podcast too, but like,
Yes.
I became friends with him in high school, and like and George, and like we just all became friends, and like we started liking different influences, which was pretty cool. So like it kind of like made that Long Island sound like a little different than just New York, New York City hardcore.
Right.
A little more than just mosh beats, but kind of like a little out of the box. And that's what I loved about Long Island.
Do you think that was a product of like being out in the suburbs and just like soaking in like different influences, late 80s?
Yeah, I
Kind of
think
like,
so. I think so because because kind of like New York City people listen to like New York City hardcore, right? But Long Island people like took in a little bit from the Midwest. We took like I'm a big California guy actually. I probably have more California style punk stuff that I got into. So like that kind of
yeah,
influenced me too. But like everybody's all into everything, and it just melded, which is cool. You never meet like somebody who likes all the same music here.
right.
So it's a little different.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And especially, I mean, you mentioned LL Cool J. Hip hop is a huge influence, especially when I was a teenager and beyond. That really made its way to the suburbs, like in the
Yeah,
90s for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, hip hop made its way to everything. I mean,
Yeah,
hip hop's an influence in every kind of music. You know, it's just
Nowadays,
different.
yeah, it's in everything
That's it,
for
you
sure.
know,
It's in pop music. Yeah.
yeah, it's what causes the groove and the beat and like everything else. And then, but there's other things, you know, and just
Yeah.
like, but every place is different, you know. I even like a lot of Midwest hardcore. It's like, you know, like it's all different, and I always loved all the different styles. So I'm not a one kind of style guy. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what was your first band?
Well, it was, you know, my first band was like it's a band called Toxic Waste. It was like that was like Neglect's first band. Like Derek Schilling lived like literally 2 blocks away from me. So like we
Mhm.
grew up in high school together. We always went, you know, and he
Yep.
was into like super thrash and super metal, and I was into the like, you know, and I was into that too. But I started really getting into hardcore and stuff like that. So we kind of made like this ridiculous band called Toxic Waste. It was funny, but it started like kind of like us getting together and
Yeah.
playing music together, you know, which was cool. So, but it was definitely weird, you know. We had some fucking crazy lyrics, so you know, like
Did you play any
not
shows
crazy
or
lyrics,
were
like
yeah,
really corny lyrics. We had no, we never really played shows, and then we just started. We always played together, and we were playing in my basement for a while, and then you know I started playing with then I met the guys from Vice Grip, and you know, and then that became Neglect and Vinyl Mana. It was all kind of at once. A lot of it was at once. So we had a lot of we had a lot of practices in our basement and stuff like that, and you know, it was really cool, and just all came together. Sundance was like the nucleus for everybody. You know, everyone went to Sundance, and that's what was cool. Like it was like that was like the Long Island place to be if you wanted to see like Sick of It All, or Guar, or
yeah.
anybody, you know, Slayer. So yeah, and I met a lot of the guys from there. And then like we'd always like sneak out of my house when I was young, go to Sundance. So it's cool.
What were some of the first shows you remember going to?
Oh my god. Some of the first shows like really like kind of like CB shows, I think. Like, you know, like just like Token Entry, Sick of It All. I loved Demise when I saw them. You know, just a lot of I like the mix of the punk and the hardcore kind of, so I always went to those shows. That's what I always liked. I never liked the total hardcore, total punk shows, always a mix. That was just my thing. So
Oh,
but
cool.
CB's Right Track In was
Oh yeah.
one of the great places too. So anyway, you could take a train to and without a car.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Cool. So, I guess, so that develops you and Derek get playing with each other and eventually Neglect forms and starts playing. Was that, I know like Neglect and Mind Over Matter were kind of like concurrent, but which one came first?
You know, I always argue with this, but I think like I really think like Neglect was kind of first just because I always played with Derek, you know,
Okay.
and then Monomatic came along, but it was very, very close. It was very, very close, you know, and I think more like Neglect used to be called, well, obviously Vice Grip was the original kind of Neglect,
Yeah.
you know, and that's like I love that demo. It's like one of my favorite demos. That's how I really got, you know, into those guys. And I met them actually all at Sundance one time, and that's how I kind of met them. And I'm like, you know, and then like Derek got invited into them, you know, and then but he just changed the whole chemistry, you know, like
Mhm.
total different thing going on. Like, you know, it's just was night and day. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool.
And then that's, but I mean, I guess Mono Matter was pretty similar. I mean, we just we played at Sundance our first show, Mono Matter, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you know, yeah, but I don't really know exactly the dates, so that you got me on.
Yeah. I know. It's not necessary, but
I'm sure people no people probably told you I'm not good with dates, but
that's fine.
you lose track after 30 years.
As we were saying, Mind Over Matter and Neglect are kind of going at the same time, but very different bands, very different influences coming through. And obviously, you were the common factor because you were playing drums in both. So, like, what was kind of the writing process, and like, how did it differ between each band, and like, how did you kind of like conjure up your influence to kind of go along with the different guitar playing and the different kind of vibe that was going in each band?
Well, Neglect was kind of like that was my hardcore band, like you
Yeah,
know, and I like I really like simple stuff is great. It has its place, and like but not so simple, but like just like very heavy and simple. And then Mario Matter was kind of like where I could take my step out and do the things I want to do, like that it was out of the box. Like, like just kind of, I had a lot of Helmet influence too and stuff like that. Like I just wanted to like, take a little bit of everything and put it into that band. And I wanted to put, just my heavy influences into Neglect. So it worked out. And it was great because, you play twice a week, one, on Tuesdays I'd play with them and Thursdays or whatever, so it was nice because it always changed it up, always made things different, exciting. Yeah. You don't want to play in 5 bands playing mosh beats all day, So
exactly, yeah.
So, and that's why I do. I the same thing now. Like I still play in different bands, and everybody has different styles, and it's cool because you got to keep your mind open because everything's really good. You just play from the heart, and that's all that matters. You just don't want to play like a machine. I don't like playing like a machine. Everybody knows that. So,
and that makes you really valuable as a musician if you could be eclectic like that.
Especially you're a drummer, right? So it's always good to,
And I've played a little bit of everything at this point. Yes.
Yeah,
I get it. But
now we didn't have machines back then. We didn't have that.
No.
It's a little crazy to compete these days, I gotta say.
No, yeah. Especially seeing drummers on Instagram who are like 21 and shredding.
It's crazy. Like it's just nuts. Even my cousin Pete, he's in like a grindcore band. I'm like, holy shit, bro. I'm like, you're out of your mind, So he plays guitar, and I'm like, it was like back then that would have been like incredible. But it's like everything keeps getting more advanced. So it's cool. It's just like I like the old school stuff. Like I can't get into really too much new stuff. That goes without saying.
Yeah, but there's no replacement for getting out on the road, which brings me to my next question. Neglect and Mind Over Matter were 2 of the first bands from here to really get going with touring and tour overseas. So which was the first one to really get on the road?
Mind Over Matter was definitely the first one.
Mind Over Matter. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we just like, we just had, Neglect was more laid back. Like we kind of like, fuck it, we don't care, but like Mind Over Matter was kind of like, let's get going. Ari Shepard was like, he always drove his van and was like, let's go to like out of state. And we start playing out of state and everything. And, I'm not really I'm not a good person when it comes to like booking shows or tours or even finding a record label. Like I'm the drummer. So I just want to hang out.
Yeah.
But, but they, we started doing a lot of things like just traveling across, like, going to North Carolina for different fests, and then, actually flying to Europe for the first time with Mind Over Matter was like, that was my first real tour for Europe, which was like 11th grade, which was crazy. So it was cool. And we took Air Pakistan.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
nice fight.
On that note, I'm going to let John in. He just showed up here.
Hey, John, what are you doing?
Sorry about that. You can hear me?
Yeah. Yep. So you didn't miss a whole lot, but.
All right.
Yeah. We got the background childhood story, but we're up to where Neglect and Mind Over Matter start touring overseas.
Oh, wonderful.
So having toured Europe much later, I know like the hospitality over there is just completely different, than over here. They're always feeding you, always putting you up. Was it the same in the early 90s?
From when I later toured, you mean? Same?
Like your early tours? Yeah.
It was definitely different. I mean, like, we went over there, like, literally, like, the Berlin Wall was getting torn down still, So, like, that's how long ago it was. But it was, like, definitely, like, a lot of youth hostels, a lot of places that were, like, just taking over, like, stairs were getting pulled up as we went up, like, to play. And it was just, like, pretty crazy shit. Real crazy punk shit, but it was cool.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's they're always hospital, like, especially Germany, always good people. They're always, like, always have like a half ton of cheese for you to eat and shit and butter. But like, that it was always good. Like we always got treated really nice. We didn't make a lot of money, but we made enough to make ends meet and come home. And you know what? When I came home, I was on a roof doing, I was putting a roof on, and I was like, wow, that was so much better. I was making money doing the roof, not money doing that. I'd rather be there. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it was the best experience of my life. You can't even do that anymore. Now everything's like so expensive, and it's hard for people to bring you out like that. It's pretty nuts.
And you said your first tour, you were still in high school?
Yeah, like 11th, 12th grade, we used to go out. Like, people would be like, "What are you doing for the summer vacation?" Like, summer vacation. We're going to, going to play Germany and in France, and it was pretty cool. So. That was my my summer vacation. Yeah. So it was funny because I would tell my music teacher, he'd be like, "What did you do?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I went to Europe. You know, what did you do?" Besides, make fun of me for not playing your stupid bass drum now.
Yeah, exactly. So, and your records were in distribution over there because of Rec Age.
Yeah,
Right.
Rec Age was and now and Audie Shepard now has Rec Age, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's carrying on he's carrying the torch, which is nice, But they were always great people, They actually invited us to their house, and just really took care of us. Like we didn't know anything, we're kids and stuff, and for them to actually take on that risk for us to go over there and promote the records that they put out and then actually have an honor to play Don Fury and record and just like really good stuff, something most people can't do without a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, or a record label. So, like a record label that needs you to make money.
So Don Fury, as you just mentioned, legendary producer. Both bands worked with him as well at some point. Yeah. So what was that experience like?
It was good. I mean, I think he's great. He's one of the best. I mean, I'm like my drums, I guess, were really good. He's very critical, which is cool. I mean, he put you under the gun and be like, "It's not right. It's not right." So that he actually, he probably straightened out. I was very off time a lot of times. Like when I first started, I was kind of like all over the place. I'm still sloppy a little bit, but whatever. But those people like make you really tight. He was just like, get back in there and do it again, and I hated them because I had to keep doing it over.
I was going to say you probably hated it at the time, but
yeah, I mean at the time,
it
makes sense. But and that goes like with all the experiences I had. Everybody I ever worked with, I get frustrated because I was never really like a perfect timing drummer. But as time went on, I really started appreciating. So all those people really made me a better person, like drummer.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess both Neglect and Minor Matter wind down around 95.
Yeah, sort of. I guess so.
And so in the interim, I know you did a band called Blaze Camo.
Yeah, so like right after that, like we started a band, Blaze Camo. Jesse.
Side.
It was it was kind of like it was like almost like a little bit more weird, I guess you could say, between the two bands. It was like Upper Side, Minor Matter. We both had ideas, which was cool, and we're like, let's try it. And it didn't go too well. We didn't have a lot of people at shows, but we had like a little studio on Ludlow Street in the city, and I hated it because I had to drive my car there, and I got my radio stolen. But but it was cool. We made a little basement, and we hung out, and everybody's really good. And now when I listen to it now, I'm like, wow, I'm like, it's pretty cool. Like we should have really. People just didn't really get it, That's what it was, I think. So I like it, and we only made like 20 records. So
that was just like a flash in the pan thing, kind of just
kind of flash.
You guys are friends.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? It actually it definitely helped me too. Like because I was like, wow, this is like a little different, and since everything it was like that period of time where like hardcore was in that lull, like kind of like nobody was really playing. It was like that whole period of time where everybody's trying to figure out something different before all the bands started getting back together again. That's what I felt like that time was. Now everybody's reunion and this and that, and everybody's coming back, but like it was kind of like there was nobody playing and just a little boring to me. That's all. Not Blaze Camo.
So after high school, were you going to college at all, or were you working?
Yeah, no, I went to Nassau College. I was I studied business. I got an associate's degree. And then we went on tour too. Was when I was in college. I actually got an offer for a full ride to Hofstra for business, and they gave that up just to go on tour again. And and I always did construction, but there's always a way you can make money. It doesn't matter. Life's short. So, you can't always, I took that route. I'm like, do I major in business and automatically become like, miserable, or have a little fun first? No, I'm not miserable, but like a regular job. I was like, you can get a regular job anytime you want, but if you get an opportunity to do something like that and tour, take it. That's all I got to say.
Sure, especially that young, like when you have all
Yeah,
your energy,
yeah. When you live in your mom,
right? Yeah.
I was like, I still live in my parents' house. I'm like, I was paying like $200 rent, so I don't care.
So I guess the next big gig is Madball after that.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the last gigs, I believe one of the last gigs we played, we were just like, oh, I played with Sheer Terror for a while,
Oh,
so
okay.
like that's what I was playing with after that, and then kind of like met Hoya. I believe Hoya was like he was at a wetland show, and he was there, and like, and I just like, and I heard Madball was looking for a drummer, so I was like, you know what, I'm like perfect opportunity because, and those guys are just like like Hoy is like one of my best friends. Like, he just I was like, I know this guy I can get along with and like, and jam with. So
Yeah.
that was cool. So like I went to go see them at CB's one time and my friend Damien, he knew all these guys and he was like, come introduce yourself and see what happens. And then I tried out for them and it was really worked out great. Did a few tours with them. So but really good experience,
Yeah.
best experience actually, but one of the best, because it's like these guys, like it's just so tight, you can't, you got
Yeah.
to be super tight, and that's what they are, and that's what their thing is, which is great. So maybe a better drummer, and I moved on, but it all worked out. So
Funny enough, the one and only time I ever saw Madball was at the Wetlands with you playing drums. And I was a little confused because Mind Over Matter were playing across town. They were doing a reunion, and I,
oh
I
yeah,
guess that was without you.
good thing you came to my show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, just stylistically, I was going to ask, because you have a very distinct style on drums, which you developed in your band, your original bands. So bringing that into Madball, like, was there a little like adjustment period to like get into their groove? Because they have
Yeah,
a very
absolutely.
distinct.
I mean, absolutely. Like, like I said, my timing was always a little off and stuff, but like, like Hoya and Matt Henderson, they're just like super time machines. Like you have to
Yeah,
be like right on point. So it definitely helped me. Like, but it was like like I said, I always get frustrated. I'm like I was trying, and it's like but definitely was a game changer for me. I think going forward, that was a
sure.
game changer for my timing and everything I make now. I just have a different mindset. So I
Yeah.
mixed the two, but you know, but you have to be on time. You can't be a mess.
And it was just that one album that you recorded with them.
Just the one record, and then we had a 7-inch.
Okay.
Shit, we did a 7-inch in that record, but that was it pretty much. But I did a lot of tours with them. So
Okay.
we did Japan, Australia, did Europe tour with them, Canada, U.S. So we definitely did a while. I was with them for a while, but I just didn't do a lot of records.
How long was your stint in Madball? Okay.
Oh shit! I don't know, like maybe I think 3 or 4 years, pretty much. 4 years.
Okay.
Look, timelines are not my thing, but I think about 4 years was like the timeline. So
Okay. And so coming out of that, was that like an amicable thing? You just like kind of wanted to move on?
no,
So,
well, the whole thing was like it was they tour a lot, and they're
yeah.
always on the road. And I was at the point in my life, like my wife. By the way, my wife, who I'm married, she stuck with me since college, so she
Okay.
never left me. You know, through all the tours and everything else, and we were thinking about having a kid, and and we have the house and everything. Got my house, and I'm like, is that really the right thing for me to be touring all the time? So it was kind of like that. It was
Gotcha.
kind of like, do I want to do I want to keep touring and take the risk and maybe not do well, or take a job? It was kind of like that. It was like,
Just kind of leave while you're on top type of thing.
well, I always did what I do not for the money. I always do what I do because I love it. I love hardcore and I love playing drums. So it was like that's what really pushed me over the edge. I was kind of like, you know what? Do I take the risk and try to make money and tour the rest of my life, or do I just bow out and still love what I do and I can still play in
Yeah.
bands and support my family? And that's kind of like, but if I would have kept doing it, I would have been able to do both. But who knows? You don't have a crystal ball.
And you would have had to
So
be away all the
yeah, I
time.
mean, they did
Yeah.
very well. I just
Yeah.
never thought a band could take off like that. So, when I look back, I'm like, shit, I should have stayed. Should have stayed with them. But
Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, I wouldn't have met all the people that I hang out with now, and different bands and stuff like that. So it's all, it's all a matter of destination, I guess.
Yeah, right on.
So,
So yeah, we're getting into like the 2000s now. So what came next for you musically?
yes, no. So I mean, I played in Death Cycle, and I always
The-
played with Gary. Yeah, Gary Banner. Like we always played together. Like he's like one of my favorite guitarists. So like we always just meld. We just played last weekend. It was
Yeah.
a great time. All the just great guys. So I played with them and Great Lie, and so I've been bouncing around a lot. I'm like a band whore. So
As it is for
Mike
drummers.
D, I love Mike D. I love Mike D and Death Cycle, and I love Ron. I just love Ron as a singer. He's like so energetic and he's crazy,
Yeah.
and he's like totally different. He doesn't give a fuck what anybody says. That's what I love about him. So
Yeah,
and,
we had an episode where we went through the 516 comp and we were talking about Leech Implant.
Yeah.
And
my favorite vegan.
Yeah. Well, also, I may be mistaken here, but were you also a DJ for a while?
Well, not a DJ, but I like to I like to play. I do like house music and I like electronic music. Yes. I just always had a passion for it. Actually, since as far back as Mine Don't Matter, I've always been into Actually, it's pretty crazy, but I always went to raves and clubs, and I have some good friends that have really good DJs and stuff like that. So I really got into it, and I just like it because like with the drums, I really can it's not as hard for me to mix stuff, I guess. So I have fun with it.
Yeah.
But I've always collected like really dark, I guess you could say dark house, deep stuff like that. That's what I'm into.
Okay.
So, nobody else likes it. I can't play it in the car. Going to a show, I can't play shit. Nobody, it's kind of like a secret thing. And actually, when I went to Europe with Mine Don't Matter, we went to like the Netherlands, and like that's when I really fell into love, like real good tech stuff. And I was like, what is this? And I'm like, this is such cool music. And that just, it's just something my own. Everybody hates what I love, but I mean, that's what I got into it. I was like, wow, like I snuck out in the middle of the night, went to a club, and then was just hanging out all night, and then played like shit the next day. But it was great.
Yeah, they still love that Gabber stuff over there in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
The super fast.
Well, not fast. I'm into I'm into really soulful tech shit, but I like it. My one of my best friends is he's a big DJ. Like DJ Samir. He's like one of the best DJs in New York. So
Okay.
he always took me to these clubs, and he's like, check this shit out. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And I'm sure it like opened your mind as rhythmically to other
possibilities.
Like,
I like everything. Yeah, like I like everything. Like you can get into reggae if you go to a reggae show. I mean, who the fuck cares as long as it's fun.
I've played a lot of reggae as well, so yes.
Yeah,
it's that's cool. And as a
Stuart
Copeland fan,
you drive yourself crazy.
No, for sure, it gets old. Okay, so getting into like kind of present day, Death Cycle, The Great Lie. How did The Great Lie come about?
Actually, it's crazy. I think Great Lie is like coming on like 10 years already. It's pretty nuts. But like they, these guys contacted me and like, you ever think you'd be interested in playing with this band? Actually, what's funny? It's my cousin Jimmy, Jimmy LaFata. He like worked with one of the guys, Mark Lopez, who used to be in Great Lie, and he was like, "You ever hear Great Lie?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Well, they're looking for a drummer. You might want to check them out." And it was funny because I was like, "All right, I'll check them out." So I listened to the CD, and my cousin doesn't have anything to do with hardcore music whatsoever, which is weird that he knew these guys. And he was like, go try out, and see what they're about. And I met them all, and I was like, fell in love because these guys, they're just such real people, every one of them. So like, and we never argue. We have such a good time. We drink. It's more of a fun band. And then for somebody like Joe to take us up on this record was like super, super, admirable. I was like, wow, man. Like, because like the record came out great and it's on red vinyl. It's sick. So
okay, we'll link to all that, of course, with your episode, so people know where to get it. Cool. So I guess that brings us to present day. What are you doing as a day job nowadays?
Financial advisor.
Okay.
JP Morgan. So that's what I do. Yeah.
Cool.
I've always been in finance. I've actually been in finance for 20 years.
Okay.
So, it's something else. I guess I'm good at. I guess I could say I'm good at doing, but you know, I just do like financial planning and a lot of investments and stuff like that. So you wouldn't
Right
think
on.
so, but you're probably like, this
Hey.
fucking guy will lose my money. Look, he
What's
just smiled.
No, I think we could both use some financial advisement, John and I.
No, I mean that's my real job, and I like that's what I do for a living. And you know, I don't care what anybody thinks. Like everybody always knew. Like even Madball, like it's funny. Hoya used to be like, "You're like an encyclopedia salesman, and you sell gold leaf encyclopedias." But that's just something I like to do, and I don't care what anybody thinks. Like, oh, you know, it is a white collar job, but who the fuck cares? It pays my bills, and I love it, and I do the right thing for people. So
There you go.
Hell yeah.
Don't knock the hustle.
no more roofing for me.
Yeah. So I guess winding down, since you are a Lindenhurst lifer, I'm very interested in your answers to these questions. Let's do a little best and worst of the Hearst.
All
I'm
right.
going to hand it over to John. We're
Uh-oh.
going to
Yeah, let's-
we're going to ask you about
Johnny!
some of your
What's up,
favorite
John?
things.
I love the shirt. Bad Brains.
Thank you. What was I going to say? So this is where we ask people what are some of their favorite things in Lindenhurst. Generally, we start with the pizza place. What is your favorite pizza place in Lindenhurst, past or present?
So now, present, I would say, my God, it's gonna be a hard one. Well, let's start with past. I'm an Alberts guy. You know, Copeg Alberts.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm a total Sicilian. I like the sauce on the top, cheese on the bottom. So I like Spazzo's right now. Spazzo's is a great.
Yeah.
He makes awesome. One of the best things that he makes is like the Caesar salad, which is cool. So I would say, Alberts for the real Sicilian stuff, and then him for like Caesar when you're in a healthy kick, which is not really healthy anyway. It's full
Not
of
really.
freaking cream.
Yeah.
But and I kind of like what's that other one? I like Mr. G's. You know why? That's my third because he makes sesame seed crust.
Mm.
None of these people want to make sesame seed crust anymore.
Yeah.
And I like semolina, like the dusted crust.
Yeah, you don't see it too often anymore.
No,
That's a shame.
And I love the fruit tree. You know what? That's my gangster place.
Yeah.
The fruit tree, man.
Hell yeah,
So-
that's the secret spot. If people know about
Yeah.
the fruit tree, you know.
As long as you can eat all the vegetables in 2 days, shit
Yeah.
won't go bad. That's right.
What is Chinese food?
Chinese. Actually, I don't really eat. Good luck.
Okay.
Good luck. But I like the Japanese place in town. He's awesome. I really like the sushi. I forget what the name of it is. It's right in town. But
Kabuki, right?
Kabuki. He gets the freshest fish on Thursdays and he always makes me something crazy because he knows I'll pay. So yeah, I'm like, I'll pay you whatever. Just make sure it's a tower of terror. That's it. And,
Dealer's choice.
Yep. But going off Lindenhurst, I would say the best Thai place is Thai USA in Huntington. That's like it looks like a little shithole on the side of the road, but oh my god, delicious, man! It's like, Ruby Soho, all like Lindenhurst is full of good places to eat.
Yeah.
So I stay out of it because I don't want to get too fat.
Gotcha.
We also asked back in the day if you were engaging in underage drinking, where was the spot to get alcohol underage?
Bee's place. It was a place you'd probably never heard of, but that was like it was a little bar on Montauk Highway, and I used to DJ there, and that was the only time I used to DJ weekly, and it was a lot of riffraff. It was like crazy. You had to he was
Was this
God rest his
Brian's
soul.
place?
What?
Brian's place?
No, this is actually off the beaten path. It was like more Copeg.
Okay.
It was like the guy passed away, but he was like this big dude that used to be in the police department. He was retired. He's like, don't worry about that. I got it. So I was like, yeah. So we had a lot of stuff going on in there, but underage, I don't know. Like underage, you could probably back in the day, like, you didn't have to worry about underage. When we were young, you can get it from anywhere. You just hit up a guy with 7-Eleven and be like, yo, bro, get me a 12.
Things got a
Right?
lot stricter when we were teenagers. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like, we used to go to the handball court when you wanted an eighth of weed. So it was swag, but still good.
And
Yeah, we were-
hangout spots. Where were you hanging out when you were younger?
We used to just skate around everywhere, like in town, like just pretty much like under the train tracks, on the train tracks, just pretty much everywhere. Like, so, I think there was a place called like the Flying W. It was like a big W on like this industrial street. We used to hang out at a graveyard. Oh my God, you name it.
Was skateboarding a big gateway to you for music as well?
Not a gateway, but a lot of people, we always skated because you needed a way around.
Sure.
Nobody wanted a bike because you can't get away quick enough with the bike. You can always take the skateboard. But yeah, most people like we hung out with skateboarded. So like I don't know, like all the Corrigans, everybody. So matter of fact, one of the first shows we ever played was in Corrigan's backyard. So
Yeah.
that was fun. So
Cool.
Vinny and Steve, and it was like we never lived more than like a mile radius. So can't skate no more. Break my head.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'll show you this one though. There we go.
Oh wow. Is that your old deck from back in the day, or
Wow, this is
no? It's
a custom black flag deck.
that's cool though.
Yeah, you got to get the old school.
Yeah.
It's Kryptonics.
Very cool. Nice. So the last question we usually ask is favorite band from Lindenhurst, and you were in a few of them, but what was your personal favorite band?
Oh.
Or any favorite band from Long Island that you enjoyed watching back in the day or playing with?
I don't know. Like I just I guess trying to think of it. Well, I would say like closest thing I liked I love Bad Trip and stuff like that. That was one of my favorite bands, but it's not Long Island, it's more like Queens.
Yeah.
But I liked kind of those bands. And my favorite band of all times is always I'm trying to think like some of the ones on Long Island, but I don't know too many bands on Long Island. I'm trying to think of it. Well, I love Hammerhead. They're from Brooklyn too. That's like one of my favorite bands. But I don't know. I loved Silent Majority. Is always like they're always a classic. Kill Your Idols is always a classic. I'm trying to think of somebody like who started like that, not with us. I know you guys know all these bands, so
yeah.
I can't think of like anything like underground that I was like started with. I guess I just always listened to when I was young. I always listened to the city shows like Crucial Chaos and USB and all those stations, and like that's what really gave me, all my oomph. But because we all really started together. I mean, like it was kind of like all those bands like Silent Majority, Kill Your Idols, everybody just came out of the woodworks, which is crazy. So
yeah, it's interesting. There was like such a, I don't want to say melting pot, but just like this collection of like really talented people all at once, like in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. And and it was cool. It was cool back in those days. Like people would hand out like demos all the time of other people, like of the bands like that weren't in the state. Sometimes, like I'd go to Sundance and you get like a Situated Chaos demo or something like that. Like it was just always different. So it wasn't so much Long Island. It was just more like bands that were just trying to struggle to move up, like get in there. So that's why I can't really pinpoint anybody. And again, Vice Grip was always my favorite. That's why I wanted to join Neglect. I think that was like my favorite demo I ever heard when I first listened to that. And I was like, I'm going to be in that band. That's what I'm going to do. That was my goal. So,
cool.
But I don't know. What are the Long Island bands? I don't know. It's like Garden Variety was like one of those things, circulating, and you're like, what?
Just tons of stuff back in the day.
So much stuff. I had so many demos. I was like, and then they all crack. And they fall in the concrete.
Right. Cool. So I guess that brings us to our closing question. If you could describe Lindenhurst to somebody who's never been there, what would you tell them?
I would say it's a beautiful town. It's like someplace I would never want to leave. Great restaurants, up and coming. Like town is great. Everybody's very respectful here. Like I really don't see a lot of hate here. You know what I mean? It's a nice place. I feel like even like up and coming bands, I feel like it's a breeding ground for good bands. I don't know what it is. Like even Hangman and like And you know, like a lot of these bands, like all the young kids too, like they're just like I love seeing new bands pop up and just kill it. So, but yeah, I have nothing to say. But you know, then again, it's Babylon and it's
Yeah.
Long Island in general. I think it really is.
Very
So,
cool.
where do you
Great.
live anyway? Where do you live?
We're both in
Oh, you're-
Lindenhurst still.
Yeah,
Oh, all right. Everybody is. Nobody's
Yeah.
nobody's in like freaking satellite and
No,
No.
no, we're all within a couple mile radius of each other right
Yeah.
now. Interestingly enough. Very cool, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks. I hope I answered all your questions. I'm like,
Yeah,
you know, I'm not
absolutely.
the best interviewer or whatever. Interviewee.
This is a totally casual thing.
If you had me and Audie Philly on together, that would have been fucking cool because we would have been crazy.
Yeah, true.
And when there's nothing left or nowhere left to go, and when you try so hard to be the man you know, you find your lover's words, you face the truth so hard, and then you realize you're surrounded but alone. Yeah, take it all away. Too much ahead of, need a break.
Long live the bench.